Hi, I'm Debra, this is Booking with Debra. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is the continuation of my favourite reads of 2021. I have already done a video with 11 books from within historical fiction and contemporary fiction, so I will link in the description box below and in the cards above that video for anyone who has not seen that video already. And this is my second video with books that fit within the categories of classics, translated fiction, short stories, poetry, memoir, biography and non-fiction. So I've got 10 more books to talk about today. Most of these books I either borrowed from the library and have since returned, or I had listened to them on audiobook. So I will try and pop a picture here of each book as I discuss it. The first category is classics, and the first classic that is definitely one of my favourites of 2021 is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I talked about this book in quite a lot of detail in my autumn wrap-up, so again I will link it in this video in the cards and in the description box below if you'd like to go and see that and hear my thoughts about this book in more detail. It was the first time I'd read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I'm sure it doesn't really need much of an introduction. Most people are familiar with the story about Dr. Jekyll, who takes his experimental elixir and in doing so reveals his kind of darker, shadower self or evil self, and then comes forth the infamous Mr. Hyde. This book is very much an exploration of the duality of human nature, and I just found it fascinating. It is a book I am hoping to revisit on audiobook at some point in the future, so I would definitely recommend it if you've not read it before. And it's just a tiny novella. In fact, I've actually got it here in front of me, so I don't know why I don't even just show it to you. Here it is, the book. It is, how many pages long? 88 pages long, so it's a really small novella, so if you've not read it, I definitely recommend it. It's a great book. And then another classic that is on my favourite books of 2021 is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. So I did a read-along for this book with Katie from Books and Things, who organised the read-along in December for this book. And again, I'd never read A Christmas Carol. Very familiar with the story, obviously, from all the film and television adaptations over the years, but it was my first read. I just thought it was fantastic, really amazing book. It exceeded my expectations. It was my first Dickens book, but it certainly won't be the last. So I'm sure you're familiar with the story, but I will just summarise it as saying it's a ghostly tale that encompasses the spirit of Christmas, and I would recommend you read it. Again, it's just a short story. Translated fiction that has been one of my favourites is Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukegawa, and this was translated by Alison. This book is all about the burden of the past and the redemption of friendship. There are two main characters within the story. Sentaro, who is a male character who is really struggling with life. He's got a criminal history and he has a job working in a confectionery shop that he just doesn't enjoy, and is just not happy with his life. And into his confectionery shop comes the second main character, and I think you would pronounce her name Tokyu, I think. She's an elderly woman who has disfigured hands and quite a troubled and difficult past. It's all about how the two main characters come to be working together and the friendship that they form. The main standout thing for me from this book was the message that this book held within it. So this is one of those books that really does have a message, and I got to the end of it and I was like, yes, I agree, that is something that I would like more of in my life. So if you like a book with a message and you're interested in reading some translated fiction, I forgot to mention that this book is a Japanese book, so it's a Japanese translated fiction. A short story collection that I enjoyed this year was The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night by Jen Campbell. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Jen Campbell as a booktuber. She has a very popular booktube channel. She was one of the first booktubers that I ever found on booktube, but she's also a fantastic author as well. This is a short story collection with 12 sort of haunting, fairy tale type stories. There's lots of sort of themes around magic, being an outsider and lost souls within it. This was a bit different for me as a short story collection, so I found it really interesting, something really different, and some really quirky parts within each of the stories. And then my next category is a category that I mentioned in my previous video, which is my bedtime listens. So I tend to listen to audiobooks, or some audiobooks, to try and fall asleep at night. Literally fall asleep listening to a book. And there was a couple of middle grade books that I wanted to mention in my favourites of 2021. The first one is Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend, which is book 3 in the series Nevermoor. So I'm not going to say too much about this book because it is the third book in the series and I don't want to give anything away. What I would say is I've really enjoyed every book in the series so far, and I'm looking forward to listening to the next one at some point to fall asleep to. But this book is all about Morrigan Crow and her friends and the adventures that they get up to. If you are a middle grade reader, or you have anyone in your life who enjoys reading or listening to middle grade, I would really recommend this series. It's really very good actually. And then the next middle grade bedtime listen that hit my favourites of 2021 is The Stormkeeper's Island by Catherine Doyle. This is the first in a series called Stormkeeper series, and this is a really lovely Irish book. The narrator of this book was Irish, so the narration really fitted with the setting of the book as well for me. And this I would describe as another sort of magical fantasy book. It's all about a young Irish boy called Fionn Boyle and about his adventures on Arramore Island. On Arramore Island, once in a generation, the island picks a new stormkeeper. And the role of the stormkeeper is really quirky and interesting. It's all about keeping a record of the storms on the island, but in a quite unique way, not in a way that you might imagine. And it's Fionn's grandfather who is the current stormkeeper, but he is in a position where he needs to step aside and a new stormkeeper is chosen by the island. Again, this was a really lovely middle grade, so if you enjoy middle grade or you know anyone in your life who likes middle grade, I would recommend this series. Again, really well narrated, very much like the Nevermoor series in terms of narration for a middle grade book. And then the next book that I wanted to mention was a poetry collection that I read, which was Fiere by Jackie Kay. Now, I reviewed this book again in a lot more detail in my Black History Month UK wrap up video, so I will put a link in the cards and a link in the description box below of this video if you'd like to go away and find out more. And within that video description I also put a link to a couple of videos of Jackie Kay, one of her reading the title poem of this poetry collection, and also a video of her talking about her life, because this poetry collection is a counterpart to Jackie's memoir. It's the themes within the poetry collection explore her experiences of being adopted by a white couple in the UK. Jackie is from a Scottish-Nigerian background, so there's themes within the book of her exploration to find and make contact with her Scottish and Nigerian parents. There's also poems there about her experiences of coming out as a lesbian, marrying her wife. There's a lot of life and love in this poetry collection. It tackles some difficult themes, but I would say friendship, love, life, relationships in their broadest sense is kind of the underlying themes, and there were some really wonderful poems in this collection. So if you're interested in poetry, I would definitely recommend it. And if you check out my other video, you can get links to a number of videos of Jackie reading some of her poetry. If you prefer to listen to poetry rather than read it, I would recommend Jackie's poetry. And then the next category where I wanted to mention some favourite books was memoir, sort of biography. And the first one of those is On the Red Hill, Where Four Lives Fell into Place by Mike Parker. So this is all about the story of Red Hill, which is a place in rural Wales, which in Welsh I think is pronounced Ringoch. I think that's how you pronounce Red Hill. So it is a Welsh memoir about the inhabitants who live in the property. So it's about two sets of male couples who have both lived at Ringoch in different times of history. It talks about the lives of those couples, both living at Ringoch and the time before they were there, and it draws on a lot of gay history within the UK, and it was very, very interesting, and I actually learned a lot from reading this book, so I would recommend it. Again, I listened to this on audiobook. I really enjoy listening to memoir on audiobook, and I really enjoyed the way this was narrated, and there was lots of factual information as well as information about their individual lives and their life experiences. And then a second book which fits in with memoir but is also a bit non-fiction as well is Trans Like Me, Conversations for Us All by C.N. Lester. So C.N. Lester is an academic and an activist, and this book explores some of the main sort of pressing contemporary issues around the trans debate. It covers things like issues around gender, media headlines, C.N. Lester's personal experiences and the personal living experiences of other trans people. It covers themes around health and medicine and the treatment of transgender people within systems such as the police and the prison system. And it also covers quite a lot of transgender history. I found this, again, I listened to this on audiobook and I found it very interesting and very useful. I learned a lot from it, and it gives you a lot to think about and reflect upon, as well as covering the author's own experiences as well, so that's a kind of balance between memoir and non-fiction within the book. And then a favourite non-fiction book of mine this year was Black and British, a short essential history by David Olusoga, and again I reviewed this book in quite a lot of detail in my Black History Month UK wrap, which I've already mentioned, which I put in the cards and will link down below as well. I didn't have a very successful reading year in 2021 around non-fiction. I didn't end up picking up a lot of non-fiction, or what I did pick up wasn't that great for me, but this definitely stood out as one of my favourite books of 2021 for non-fiction. It's a Black British history, and it spans such an amazing period of time. So it starts out in the Roman era and it goes right up to the 20th century. This particular version of this book is written for a younger audience, so a sort of teenage YA audience, I would suppose. However, I think this was a fantastic book for anybody who was looking for a place to start around Black British history. It's very, very informative. Even as an adult reader, I got a huge amount out of it and learnt something really valuable in every chapter, and it's very accessible. So if you're looking for a place to start around Black British history, I would definitely recommend this book as a non-fiction book. And then there are 4 other books that were also within my favourites of 2021. 2 fictions in translation, one from a European country and one from an African country, and 2 short story collections, one from an Asian country and one from a European country. Now, because I am doing a Read Around the World challenge, where I'm trying to read books, at least one book from every country in the world at some point over many, many years, it's a long-term project. I'm not going to say anything more about those books in this video today. I am going to be sharing those books and the details of those books and my reviews of those books when I do the Read Around the World videos for those countries, if that makes sense. That's my favourite standout reads within the themes of classics, poetry, non-fiction, memoir, middle grade, bedtime listens, those types of things. So a couple of questions for you, which I'd love to hear your answers in the comments below, is: have you read any of these books that I've mentioned? How did you find them? Did you enjoy them? Did you not like them? I'm interested to hear what you thought. Are you interested in reading any of these books in 2022? And then another question is, what has been your favourite read of 2022 within any of the categories of classic, middle grade, translated fiction, short story collections, memoirs or non-fiction? If you had one favourite book from any of those genres, I'd love to hear what it is in the comments below. If it's a book I've read, we can chat about it together in the comments, and if it isn't, it might be something that I'm interested in reading and can add to my TBR in future. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As with all my videos, I will list all of the books mentioned in the description box below. I am trying this year to post a video once a week, every Saturday, UK morning time. If you would like to be notified when my next video goes onto my channel, please click the bell down below. If you've not subscribed yet, I would love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you've not done so already, please check out my Instagram, my Bookstagram, which is linked in the description box below, and let me know in the comments if you're an Instagram user, and I will come and touch base with you in Instagram world and Bookstagram world. So that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye.